So, Formula One. Are you sure you made the right call? Because Andretti is seriously packing heat. And right now, they're kind of making some of your more established teams look a little bit, ropey. The big news yesterday came from Silverstone, where Andretti unveiled its brand new facilities. No, this isn't the satellite operation that was based in essentially a bunker that we heard last year via The Athletic. That was already impressive in of itself, but no. This is a brand new, swanky facility. They cut the red tape to open it yesterday. It looks really shiny. It's 48,000 square feet with the opportunity to buy up a 70,000 square foot base just across the street. And it's just looking so pristine. I mean, look at that cool entrance. It's got red plastic everywhere and it's all at jaunty angles. That's modern design. So you gotta think, oh, they mean business there. I'm not trying to be flippant or anything. This looks really, really polished. Clearly, Andretti Global isn't taking their rejection by Formula One management laying down. And when Michael Andretti said that they would continue at pace, they seriously meant it. Because not only do they have the Silverstone base, they currently have a base for their Formula E operation out in Oxfordshire, and of course they got their main base in Indianapolis, just a hop, skip and a jump away from the heart of American motorsport at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I mean, come on, Andretti is probably one of the most storied brands in motorsport history. It's based right next to the heart of American motorsport. It's now based next to, as Mario Andretti said, the heart of Formula One. What more do you want? And honestly, they're kind of making some of the teams that are currently in Formula One look a little bit silly. You've got the likes of Red Bull embroiled in a rumbling court case with Christian Horner involved. You've got Ferrari operating underneath the shadow of the incoming Lewis Hamilton for the rest of the year. You've got two teams who are supposed to be experienced long-term examples with limited resources currently and not enough chassis to run comfortably. And then, of course, there's Sauber. You know the ones who can't service their cars in the pit lane properly. This team's been around for over 30 years, what's going on? It's just making Haas look quite competent. They've actually been drama-free this season, Haas. I mean, of course, there's the infamous dumping of Gunther Steiner, but with every race that passes, that decision's slowly turning into something along the lines of, yeah, maybe that was for the best. I mean, even Gunther Steiner says that he was probably there for a bit too long. The last few months haven't exactly been kind to quite a few teams up and down the grid, and in some cases you could say these teams have brought the sport into disrepute. Disrepute, eh? That's a word you hear a lot in Formula One. The FIA likes to use it as well. Bringing something into disrepute. And in my own opinion, I think Formula One brought itself into disrepute when they ceremoniously rejected the likes of Andretti just at the end of January. After months of stonewalling them, and thankfully Andretti anticipated that we were going to be rejected, by them saying in no uncertain terms that Andretti would bring nothing to the Formula One table. They would effectively be a bunch of moochers suckling at the teat of Stefano Domenicali and Formula One management. Sorry if that's a really nasty mental image in your mind, I'm really sorry, but it's true though. That's what Formula One thought Andretti would be. That they would bring no value whatsoever, that people outside of America would not even recognize the name, and that they would just be trying to make the most out of Formula One's global identity. And since General Motors wasn't going to be ready to join Formula One for another couple of years because Andretti wanted to join for 2025 or 2026, then there was no real point in bringing them over. And in some circles, there were many rumors that the likes of the Formula One bods were trying to convince General Motors themselves to break away from Andretti and enter Formula One on their own and partner up with some of their existing teams. Try and do something like that, a bit of a sweetener. Well, that turned out not to be the case, because General Motors is really sticking to the likes of Andretti, and their partnership seems to be getting stronger and stronger by the day. After Andretti got rejected, Formula One probably hoped that they would have just walked away into the sunset and carried on with their Formula E and their IndyCar operations. But no, Michael Andretti has decided just to turn up the volume even more. And not only are they going to be potentially planning a Formula One campaign, but they're also going to be looking at doing something in Formula 2 and Formula 3, with bringing American drivers over from the US to Europe and going through the proper junior channels. Wait, are you serious, Law? Yeah, apparently that's what they're trying to do. I personally think that's really, really serious. Their future plans include putting an entry for both FIA-led junior categories in order to promote American drivers and get them into European motorsport from the other side of the pond, instead of the case of Logan Sargent. Wait, Logan Sargent is an American driver, what are you talking about? Well, if you go look through his junior career, especially his single-seater career, he didn't exactly cut his teeth in American series or anything like that. When I heard this news that they were going to be doing an F2 and F3 series as well as Formula 1, as well as sports cars, as well as Formula E and Extreme E and any other thing under the sun, my eyebrows retreated into my copious hairdo and went, blimey! They're not hanging around. I mean, they haven't been hanging around with Formula 1. They've been trying to find any sort of opportunity to get into the sport for years. Either buying their way in with Sauber, trying to tempt themselves with Haas, and now potentially there are ways to get in because there's been recent rumors about Alpine being up for sale because Renault are bored, but then they swiftly denied that. And now Helmut Marko has gone on the blow to Austrian media saying that there are many interested parties of the Racing Bulls outfit. That doesn't honestly surprise me, and I wouldn't be surprised if Michael Andretti was tempted by that, but is deciding probably to go it alone. But I'll talk more about that Racing Bull situation later if you're interested. But this time out, they're not going to be buying out another team. They're probably going to be doing it on their own with the backing of General Motors, who are clearly looking over at Ford and what they're doing with Red Bull, and are probably quite keen to best their American rivals. And not just providing engines or spare bits and pieces. No, General Motors is providing staff to work with Andretti's acquired talent from other teams and other operations amongst motorsport, as well as doing a little bit of research and development over at General Motors' own facilities in North Carolina. For me, this is incredibly convincing that Andretti should be on the Formula 1 grid. They are doing everything right. They are being very vocal, very transparent about what they are doing. And yes, of course, in some circles this could be considered incredibly loud, obnoxious, and arrogant. That yes, they do not have a place on the Formula 1 grid, but they are still acting like they are anyway. And for the longest time, that was in the back of my mind, that, yeah, this is all very well and good, you building all of this facilities and having a 2023 spec car and doing some research and hiring staff, but surely you're not going to be pinning all your hopes on just that one thing, right? Well, with this F2 and F3 news, this is making me feel all the better, that maybe their goal isn't just to be in Formula 1. And then when I read through all of the articles, my heart lifted and skipped a beat by them saying that their main goal is to be in every single major motorsports category in the world. Oh, sorry, I should say that properly. Be in every major motorsport category in the world. Formula 1 will be a mere part of the Andretti Global mission, with their Formula E machine proving to be quite potent, as well as their efforts in Extreme E, and on top of that, aside from the opening of this new base, they want to do a sports car campaign with hypercars being mentioned. And since Cadillac has an existing hypercar campaign of their own, I could easily see this happening, with either Cadillac supplying a customer car with Andretti branding, so that means they can cut their teeth and figure out what's what, or maybe, this could easily happen as well since they are working so closely together, that the Cadillac team then becomes the Andretti team. They rebadge themselves, they work with the Andretti unit at Silverstone, and then maybe we can see an Andretti Global team that is operated by Cadillac. They can create a brand new mega team, and that sounds, well, mega. And oh yeah, that Formula E operation that currently is in Banbury, no, they're going to bring that to the Silverstone unit as well, which makes me feel so much happier. That they are bringing everything under one roof, that everybody could cross-pollinate. They can move from one department to another. There's always motorsport going on there. So even though one thing may not be working at that one time, another thing is going. It'll be a real big, strong, buzzing operation with many people working around the Silverstone area and just naturally finding themselves working for Andretti with no disruption to their lives whatsoever. Basically, everything that they're not doing in North America is going to be based in one area. Yes, it would be fantastic if they get Formula 1 into their operation, but right now, it's not their main priority. It'd be great, but okay, that might take a while, so instead, we're going to go and do this as well, instead of just pinning their hopes on one single thing and going, yeah, we're going to get there. Yeah, honestly, we're going to get there. Oh, no, we are really going to get there. Oh, no, we just need a little bit more capital. Okay, maybe, we have a website. You know, like USF1 had. They are doing everything right, Andretti. And like I said in my original video, when they showed off their initial facilities, they were basing themselves in Silverstone. And usually, when a brand new team decides to start up operations, they tend to start it in a place which isn't really accustomed to the world of Formula 1. Either they base it in a completely different country, or at the other end of the UK, or in America. But in this time around, they are basing themselves at Silverstone, where the majority of Formula 1 operates. You could easily get a situation where Andretti is looking at people working for another team and going, hey, you want to work for us? And then they go, oh, you're actually not that far away, or you're just a slightly different commute. Okay, cool. There's no disruption, there's no issue there. And people working in the US, sure, they can come over to the Silverstone base if they want to. There's also going to be the Indiana base, which is quite big in of itself, and Commuting by air in America is all the more common, so you could easily have people working on the other side of the country, but if they can easily get there within a couple of hours via plane, then they can do that. What I find really intriguing out of all of this is that F2 and F3 are now on Andretti's radar as well. Sure, it requires more personnel and facilities, but these series aren't exactly expensive, and a lot of the equipment is provided by the series organisers themselves, which by the way so happens to have very little or nothing to do with Stefano Domenicali and Formula One management. In fact, it's operated by a completely different company, as well as being sanctioned by the FIA, and the FIA already greenlit the Formula One entry for Andretti, so they're really in good cahoots with the likes of the American team. The company in charge of Formula 2 and Formula 3 is Formula Motorsport Limited, and they are based in the UK, thanks to Company House, and their main guy is Bruno Michel. And believe it or not, Flavio Briatore had a hand in developing it, you know. With Stefano and Formula One management not having anything to do with who enters and who doesn't, it does potentially give a really easy way into the junior categories of the motorsport by having Andretti just enter the category, maybe drop in a few $1 million or so, and therefore they would have a real proper European conduit for any American talent, because in their statement at the same time, the purpose of Andretti would be to bring in American talent, be it on the engineering level or in terms of the driver level. That means all of the junior drivers from America may have an opportunity to then cut their teeth on the European circuit, them having the proper experience in the US first, but it's under an American banner. But right now they're not planning on doing that, because currently the only way they are going to have an F2 and F3 team is if the F1 project gets the full-on green light, because obviously they want to have an endpoint for any of their drivers in the junior categories, because sure, if you get an Andretti driver in F2 and they win the world title, which F1 team would take them? None of them, because they would probably do it in terms of circling around themselves and not doing it out of spite. But at the same time, I could easily see them doing it anyway, because there would be no one there saying no, and sure, Formula 2 in terms of running a team might cost up to maybe $10 million or so, but as we all know, becoming a driver in Formula 2 is not cheap, and they do need to pay their way, and some of the costs of running that Formula 2 team would be absorbed by the driver, as well as their respective sponsors. Yes, it might be a little bit pricey, but it might be a price to pay in order to get proper American talent that isn't just tied to IndyCar. That's always been an argument against Andretti, that they can't find proper talent and instead, oh, they'll just port over IndyCar drivers. I'm not saying IndyCar drivers aren't talented, but that just seems to be a common argument that's usually used to dispel the likes of Andretti. But they are doing their best to try and not do that. Sure, they do acknowledge that IndyCar drivers are talented, of course, but they also want to try and find drivers from different categories as well. By having an F3 and F2 team, is to essentially have a brand new racing academy of their own. But instead of just having an academy and then just plastering all of their logos over an existing team's car, or what they're doing in F1 Academy, just entirely getting rid of the identity of the existing team entirely by just having their colours on it, is that they have a proper team. It's the Andretti Autosport team, the Formula 3 team, the Formula 2 team, and then ideally an F1 team. So there is a direct path upwards. So if an F2 driver for their team does really, really well, then there would be practically a guaranteed place. It's the next evolution of a proper academy. I thought they were serious when they showed their Silverstone base initially, but now I feel like they're even more serious, that they would be really a valuable contributor to Formula One, because it's becoming quite obvious that Formula One wants to break into the American market. And even though they're sinking hundreds of millions of dollars into building brand new circuits, such as Miami, which is temporary by the way, and also having a permanent part of Las Vegas and building it around that, they spent several $100 million, in fact maybe over $1 billion in making the American dream happen. And Andretti agrees that the American market is very valuable for Formula One, and that they themselves can tap into it even more because, as far as they see it, the Formula One market in America is still relatively untapped. But if there was a direct link to IndyCar and Formula One, with one team being in also another category, that could easily provide a bridge for fans that may not have been interested in Formula One because there were no American teams involved, or teams that they recognized aside from maybe Ferrari. Because come on, Formula One is desperate to get more and more American money, whilst also not wanting to share that money with American teams, because there are rumours that New York and Chicago are being mooted to join the calendar because trademarks have been confirmed. Yes, I know trademarks aren't necessarily a guarantee for a race, but they are there. And Andretti are aware that maybe they might be able to offer more opportunities than any of the existing 10 teams currently can do. Because sure, they are very big names now, thanks to the likes of Drive to Survive and the growing reputation of Formula One as a global sport, but there isn't that direct link to America. Unless, of course, you count the likes of Haas, but even then it's a bit of a Frankenstein operation. That being said, there is no denying that the way that Andretti is going about this is quite loud and in some circles quite irritating. In fact, Michael Andretti's goal is such that it'll get to a point where, and I quote right here, again I won't bother with the ahem, that once everybody understands what we are really putting together, it'll be a point where they can't say no. And by they, he is referring to the likes of Stefano Domenicali and Formula One management, who basically slapped them back down in a very, very embarrassing fashion. They dedicated a very, very, very lengthy worded document to basically say, thanks, but no thanks. But they didn't do just that. They completely tore Andretti's application apart. It was a very long statement, just going through every single bit of the application in a very legalese manner, basically said that, yeah, they're no good at all. They won't offer anything to Formula One. The only way they can viably contribute to Formula One is that they can be competitive immediately by getting podiums and wins, which, if you translate it, means they really need to beat Red Bull because we want Red Bull to be beaten because they're really making it look boring and we really don't want to lose money because it's looking incredibly boring. Please, Andretti, save us, but you can't save us because you don't look like you're really competitive. You're going to mooch off of us. No! I can't believe how Formula One just tore into them so publicly. And then, just 24 hours later, the Lewis Hamilton Ferrari news broke, and then the Andretti rejection news got completely buried. And after a few days, everyone forgot about it. Well, Michael Andretti now has made sure that nobody would forget about it. And sure, he put out a statement a few days later after the rejection, which got some coverage, but now, with this Silverstone base coming online and it being opened, this huge brand new base with its red plastic awnings at the front, it's showing a real strong state of intent that, sure, we want to get into Formula One, that's going to be our main goal, but we're going to do some other things as well. We're going to make use of these facilities. They're not just going to be used for Formula One only, and then basically be just left to rot. This isn't just some podunk operation with no silverware attached to it, and the only thing they can offer is a very, very, very big pile of cash from dubious sources, which may or may not materialize. However, they're not just going to be hanging their hat on the F1 hook. They are going to be showing the world that they are serious in getting into every single avenue of motorsport outside of America. And I think that by them opening this facility and then looking to buy an even bigger facility next door, that this is a real major sign that they are making the UK a major hub of their motorsport operations within Europe and maybe other parts of the world. And supposedly, Andretti and Formula One are still in talks, and even though they got off to the wrong start with that supposed December meeting being missed because there was an administrative mix-up, they are still trying to find a way to get Andretti into the motorsport for maybe 2026, which is when the Concord Agreement is amended, and then any new team have to pay a $600 million dilution fee instead of the $200 million. Sure, that's going to be a bit of a pain to try and source, but I'm sure that Andretti will find a way to be able to do it. And that they will also try and find a way to get into the sport using Renault Power, which was the initial agreement. It's currently expired, but Renault has said that they're open to renew that deal if Andretti can secure a proper seat at the table. They'll have that for a couple of years before General Motors gets their motor ready to go for 2028, and Andretti becomes the fully fledged works operation that they intended to be, used to the operational rigours of Formula One. Usually when an F1 team is rejected, they tend to whimper on for a little bit. They try and maybe get in for the following season, then they don't. They sort of just crawl into the background. The original investors just pack up their suitcases and go home. Maybe they might try something else with another team, or they might try something else at a different series, but more often than not, it just tends to go away. Not so with Andretti. They are making it perfectly clear that they are going to get to Formula One no matter how hard they have to shout. And yes, of course, as I've said, it may be seen as incredibly obnoxious and loud and stubborn, but quite frankly, they have every right to be that way, because Formula One, with their rejection, was equally as loud and obnoxious and, quite honestly, savage. I feel that this situation has been established that, yeah, it's just going to be who shouts the loudest will prevail. Formula One is where they want to be, but if it takes a while for them to get there, then that's okay, they'll find other stuff to do. But with this brand new opening of their Silverstone facilities, and their plan looking incredibly rock solid, and them looking to other avenues of motorsport as well, in the meantime, we will get an American team in the 11th team slot after all. One that will truly fulfill the desire of Formula One management to fully embrace the American market and make as much money as possible. But wait, I hear you say, why did Formula One reject it, and what exactly did they say? Well, if you did miss the news thanks to the Lewis Hamilton Ferrari deal, I've got you covered in this video here that you can go and watch right now, and brace yourselves, you will be seething at the end of it. Whew.